Hello, every folks, and good morning. Welcome to another episode of Know Your Unit 1 Vision, aka Know Your Fried Chicken. And today we're talking about the Fusilier or the Fusilier if you're feeling either Italian or French. I can't remember, but I am neither. But let's go ahead and talk about this fun adaptive unit. Now, the thing is, this guy is basically your modern combat specialist, more or less. Of all things, they specialize in guns, pistols, crossbows, daggers, and medicine. So, bit of an unusual combination, nothing too particularly special as far as their built-in stuff here, but notice that their stats are entirely dedicated towards offense with practically nothing defensively speaking, except for a bit of avoidance. This will be important later, but let's go ahead and continue on here. Before I inevitably forget, know that as far as their spell access goes, this is actually going to be a few things out of the Art of War category. Namely, we are going to have access to the Flashbang, Tear Gas, and Mustard Bomb abilities, which are going to extend the effective range of your Mustard Bombs, Tear Gases, and Flashbangs, effectively being something of a situational lobber for just this selection of items. And additionally, they'll have access to Escalade and Water Step for being able to get around a bit better. Escalade is very, very good for those situations where you just want to be out of the way, and then Water Step is particularly useful in, let's say, a sniper build, because this is going to be one of the best, arguably the best, sniper classes in the entire game. But Water Step, funnily enough, a little bit of a quirk of the game, cannot actually expire if you don't have the ability to swim. They don't have that naturally, and as long as you don't give them a reason to swim, simply put, they just won't be able to lose their water walks. They can just kind of hang out on the ocean sniping from their footboat. Any darn ways. Actually, one more little thing, because this is probably going to confuse someone. This is not the same as the Commando, which is Lindell's unique class. His unique take on the Fusilier. We'll handle that one in its own separate video. Okay, that being said, let's talk about the Fusilier. So this is, on paper, your dedicated sniper. Though it is worth noting that it actually comes in 4 different flavors this time around. You've got your usual variants in terms of your humans. These are going to be fairly average in one vision. You've got your winged variants, which are able to fly, but did see a stat penalty across the board in OV. Personally, I prefer running Fusilier on these guys. Simply put, because a lot of the stuff that I like using this class for has nothing to do with stats. I know, what a shocker. Anyway, moving on. If you want a bit more bulk in your day, you've got the Lizardman variant, and if you're feeling a bit more offensive and cheeky that day, you've got your Gremlin. Now, let's go ahead and talk builds and skills and other type of goodies with this class, because it's got a lot going for it. So this is my personal favorite, just a pistol, dagger, and evasion. Basically, this class is limited to only 3 weapon categories, but you'd be surprised how much they can actually do within those 3 weapon categories, and it's because all of their skills actually changed for one vision. They are very different from the official releases, but I want to point out that it's very funny to me that both One Vision and Reborn did actually come to very similar conclusions as far as stuff that the Fusilier should do. So, like in Reborn, they got the lobber. In One Vision, they have effectively the lobber, but only just for those grenades. In terms of the skills in Reborn, they had Quick Draw. In this case, they have Disarm. So, for example, there's a unique finisher over here for the Fusilier that's called Disarm here. It's a 50 TP move that will essentially fire with a chance to shackle. And so the useful thing about this is that it allows them to effectively disable a target before they can fire, whereas the other version was to essentially fire when being fired upon, which was arguably a bit more situational. Either way, it's just funny to me that both of them had Indiana Jones on the brain. Now let's go ahead and continue on. So weapon-wise, they have access to daggers, crossbows, fusils. Art of War we already discussed. It's just those 5 abilities that they have access to on Art of War. Augments, they have the full list, and then racials, they have everything except for the stuff that they personally are. Then next, it's worth noting that they have Deflect, but not Parry. And I want to mention this because one of the first builds that everybody comes up with, and you might be wondering why I didn't use it on this dagger and pistol guy here, is parrying dagger plus pistol. It makes sense. You shackle with the dagger, but remember, your pistol can already do that at range. If you're using the parrying dagger, oftentimes you'll use it for its +2 parry bonus. But again, note that they don't have parry, so they can't make use of that bonus. That 50 evasion is still fantastic, but I'm just throwing it out there as a little bit of a consideration for y'all. for example, parrying dagger plus crossbow, now we're cooking. That crossbow covers a lot of their weaknesses. It's a bit faster to fire. They don't have access to a shackle off the pistol. You know, that can work pretty darn well. Nice way to cover their weaknesses. If they want to go for more of a sniper build, they always have the railbows for that. But wait a minute, they're supposed to be sniping. Why are we even talking about being in close range whatsoever? Why are we looking at things like counter hits and bashes and jumps and stuff like that? I mean, I also should probably mention they have Field Alchemy 1 as well, giving them decent item access. But why are we even discussing this? First aid. If any of y'all have played Unicorn Overlord before, which if you haven't, we have no words to talk. Go play it. Anyway, so first aid. Effectively, this is a very, very cheap ability that will restore some health and removes one debuff. Now, health-wise, this is something like 5%. However, it is actually, is it 5 or 20? I don't know. It's a decent, like, kind of lower end chunk. It's somewhere in the 5 to 15 range, probably. Because I know that it did about 100 to the golem, who has about 600 health. So, whatever that tells you. Anyway, we'll say something like a sixth of their health, right? Anyway, the thing is, though, if you have them moving around fast enough, like, for example, a Fusilier, winged Fusilier is going to be a little bit faster here, as well as giving them light equipment will make them relatively quick, you now have a unit that, let's say, can run up, attack, heal, run up, attack, heal, dodge, attack, heal. That ability for them to constantly put out that single debuff removal, that single quick heal, essentially puts them in the same category as the clerics in Reborn, where it's not that they're healing a ton, but the fact that they're able to not only heal in 2 places at once through both Field Alchemy and First Aid, but it also allows them to constantly keep removing debuffs. It allows them to constantly keep spreading around those heals where they're needed, and additionally, they can do this while being an evasion sport. Due to their very lightweight equipment, due to their kind of natural stat preference towards avoidance, this means that they can often dodge tank a lot of things that are around them, and this is especially true for situations like, you know, the previously mentioned parrying dagger plus crossbow build, which would be pretty much bottomed out odds forever, though I will mention personally, with a Ring of Alacrity as well as a Phantom Cloak and some light leggings, I've still seen bottomed out odds regardless, so the parrying dagger isn't necessarily kind of needed to get those bottomed out hit odds, just so you're aware. So it might be a little bit of overstacking in that particular situation. Personally, I found more versatility with this build here. So, with that said, let's talk about their other options. And actually, quick discussion here on the pistol and knife build here. Why even bother with a knife? Well, potentially a counter hit from any range. So, pistols have 7 range naturally, which is going to counter many of the ranges that the AI likes to engage from. And obviously, a melee weapon's going to engage in melee, and so this basically means that, let's say you pair them up with something like a Valkyrie, they put their Fated Circle on there, now you have a guaranteed bind coming off this dagger, as well as a very high chance to crit from this pistol, because it's worth noting before we even get into the rest of the skills, that the pistols have a built-in 30 or higher luck bonus. Now, this will vary, obviously, depending on the weapon. The stronger they get, the better their crit gets. The lowest end Kabur over here comes in with a luck of 25, but that's still very significant. So either way, this is a weapon that's got a chance to wildly modify its damage on the fly, and that's one of those things that makes it feel so legit in this mod, because it feels like a pistol should, that it feels like you don't know exactly what that thing's going to do. It's going to hurt, but you don't know how bad it's going to hurt. It is a weapon of chaos in long range. Now, that said, though, this luck also helps to, for example, make them better at dodging. So despite the pistol slowing them down, it also makes them potentially dodge better, potentially makes them deflect better, that kind of thing. So remember that that is a thing. Luck affects everything in little ways. In Reborn, it was more so for crits and such. In this case, you definitely feel luck more for basically everything, so just kind of bear that in mind. So yeah, it will definitely hurt if they get hit by something. Their defensive stats are basically that of a parakeet, but they are typically able to dodge just about everything. But let's say you want to play it a little bit safer, a little bit more kind of conservative here. I want to point out that I'm currently building him towards this, where, for example, this Chidori that he picked up is a lightning element dagger, and I want to put other elements in here, but simply put, he doesn't have any space to put any more augment slots. He's already stacked to the gills, to the point that he doesn't even run deflect at this point. But, for example, let's say I give him this this lightning crossbow over here. Now he's got a bonus versus golems, which he's not very good against. The poison on this thing is very good against golems on a good day, so having a little bit of a damage bonus there definitely helps. I do find it funny that lightning is the one that counters golems, not the wind one, but whatever. Anyway, The mind bonus on this thing helps to kind of shore up the defenses that he's lacking here. So this is a good little combination for him that is a nice little middle ground, like a happy middle ground of not wasting any additional slots, of giving them a faster firing weapon to build up that first aid. Because the recovery time on the light crossbows, the poisonous crossbows, is half that of firing a pistol. So effectively, they're going to be attacking more often, they're going to be healing more often, they're going to be throwing poison out there, at which point I no longer care that they can't use their disarm anymore. That's just a really cool build, and yes, it's functionally speaking the Arbalester from Unicorn Overlord. So I love that. I absolutely love that. So that's really cool to me personally. That's kind of what he's building for right now, but until then, the luck bonus from this pistol is going to be what keeps him alive, not necessarily his ability to move out of the way. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and talk about their long-range options, because they are, bar none, at least in my opinion, going to be the strongest kind of sniper-type unit in the game, as you'd kind of expect. Not only can they use the full sniper set, which basically means that you're not dodging anything, you're sitting still, and you're getting the old Jiggler set bonus on a gun, but instead you can use things like course correction, to hit things from behind walls. A little bit of a quirk I want to mention here is that the PSP version that this is based off of did have some difficulty recognizing what was or wasn't a target, so bear in mind that if there's props in the way, it will still hit those. It's a little inconsistent on what it'll hit when, but typically just imagine a invisible line going from that unit to the other unit, and if there's anything with a health bar in the way, that'll be a problem. But if you, let's say, use their water walking ability to park them out in the middle of nowhere, then you can just happily snipe everything all day. So course correction is great for those situations. Sharpshoot would also be potentially great in those situations, though sharpshoot is limited to just fusils, it doesn't apply to crossbows. It's worth noting also that one of the benefits of fusils that's always been there is the fact that they cannot be deflected. The bullets will simply go through. So just bear in mind that this is always here, but due to the luck bonus on that Fusilier, more often than not, course correction is basically the same thing as sharpshoot plus course correction, because you already have really high luck for being able to land those crits naturally. Honestly, like the sheer usefulness of course correction over sharpshoot is a little baffling to me, because sharpshoot only works with fusils. It's twice the cost of course correction. Yes, it's a guaranteed crit, but a guaranteed crit on a fusil that can already do it a lot of the time anyway, I just don't think it should be the same price as, for example, a bow or crossbow getting a guaranteed crit that kind of needs it and can guarantee a debuff. But that's just me. This is one of the very few skills I'm like, yeah, I don't really know why this is so expensive. Because I would gladly just completely avoid activating this and just go use a first aid or something instead. And it's actually worth noting on the thing for first aid here, it's also one of very few support abilities like this that's able to be used on yourself as well as everybody around. So it's got a decent range to it, it's got a decent bit of effectiveness. If you build for enough speed, you're constantly getting benefit off it, so that's good stuff there. It's actually worth noting that one potentially very solid option would be something like a Void Ring, and then going for the Parrying Dagger. If, for example, you didn't want the MP removing finisher from the daggers here, that's one of the reasons that I use it personally. But let's say you went main gauche instead, brought that avoidance up a decent bit, and then went for a Void Ring in order to let's say reduce the recovery time down to 70, that would be pretty darn significant. So that basically puts them at the same speed as a Griffin and stuff like that. So just know that they can be pretty darn fast. But yeah, course correction. It's worth noting that their rifles are going to have the same range as the rail bows without the same limitations. So, for example, they can use something like their Escalade here to go put themselves in a high position and just simply keep firing down. Again, typically I just don't see sharpshoot being worth it, but hey, if you're firing away, why not? Anyways, aside from that, we have Opportunist, which doesn't really help my guy here any, but just allows you to avoid Rampart Auras. Trajectory, if you're running any kind of ranged and melee build at the same time, as well as swapping into finishers all the time, Trajectory is an absolute must. This is, I would argue, one of the best skills in the game, being able to improve the accuracy of almost every attack in the game. So just great overall value off of that one. You've got your usual selection of wards, and then you've got Recruit. So yeah, that's kind of about that. So as far as the Fusilier goes, there's a lot of stuff that they can do. There's a lot of versatility, despite this somewhat limited selection of equipment and whatnot. But yeah, it's potentially a very fun build to play around with. And yeah, just remember that as far as finishers are concerned, if you wanted to have that disarm finisher, you do need to be equipping a Fusil as well as the Fusil skill. If you wanted to have a lot more range on there, remember that you can go either muskets or railbows, though muskets, well, long arms in general would just do that job a bit better. And yeah, so we've got that there. As far as any other builds go, like, are there any other pieces of equipment worth noting on them? Most of their stuff is going to be pretty lightweight, so you usually just want to stack for evasion, unless, like, let's say you're running a lizard build or something. A lizard is probably one of the few cases where we actually would be able to potentially see some kind of return off of going a little bit more tanky. So potentially they could be, let's say, running here. Let's go ahead and give him a patilla. Let's go ahead and give him a shield. Let's get let's say a raider vest on there, as well as we probably want to go for a Bergenette on him to give him a bit more accuracy. And something like a Ring of Vigor or something. And this would be a decent bit more tanky. Like, this guy could effectively be a sort of front range, kind of frontline tank-ish type situation, constantly regenerating himself through First Aid, shaking off debuffs. And First Aid also is one of those ones that has the unique distinction of being able to, for example, take them out of a disabled state. So, like, let's say they're shackled or something, and then they just First Aid themselves and then go immediately back to fighting, right? So it's a very, very versatile thing. It's a class that, funnily enough, it's one of its like primary best moves at this point. Has nothing to do with sniping, which I personally find really funny. And yeah, it's just a great class overall. Easily a strong contender for something you really want to have around all the time in the end game. When it comes to the rifle users in end game, a lot of times you'll find yourself trying to track those down pretty quick. So even building something like a counter sniper out of a lizard could actually work pretty darn well, seeing as they'll oftentimes be pretty accurate. So just being able to, let's say, try to armor through some of that could maybe be what you're looking for. So just kind of a potential idea there. Anyway, that's kind of about that. So y'all have yourselves a good one. I hope this was useful. Take care, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.